Recent major events form a connected sequence of criminal activity sharing overlapping networks of individuals, organizations, and institutions. The COVID pandemic, border policies, BLM unrest, the 2020 election, DEI-CRT initiatives, and trans indoctrination programs each function as distinct crimes while generating internal layers of conspiracy, direct acts, and spillover effects. These events link through common participants who move between roles as planners, enablers, and executors. The same governmental, institutional, media, and corporate actors appear across multiple crises, coordinating resources, narratives, and policies that advance centralized control and societal transformation. This interconnected structure reveals a broader pattern where success in one domain enables escalation in another. The COVID response stands as the most overt and extensively documented event within this sequence. Public records, signed executive orders, congressional testimony, internal communications, video statements, and enforcement actions create an unparalleled archive of participation. Unlike other events with layers of plausible deniability or hidden operational compartments, COVID crimes feature front-and-center involvement by officials at every level of government, public health agencies, pharmaceutical entities, media organizations, technology platforms, hospitals, and educational systems. This overt documentation establishes clear chains of command and personal responsibility that facilitate precise identification of actors across the wider network. The COVID crimes therefore serve as the primary entry point for accountability measures that radiate outward to connected events. By concentrating on COVID treason, COVID murder, and COVID child abuse as imprescriptible offenses, the framework leverages the absence of any statute of limitations to target key figures whose removal disrupts participation in parallel and subsequent criminal activities. The malum in se character of these COVID offenses, centralized power grabs, foreseeable harms through mandates, and medical interventions on minors, aligns with long-standing legal categories exempt from temporal boundaries. Prosecution of COVID criminals simultaneously weakens the network sustaining border non-enforcement, election irregularities, racial discrimination programs, and ideological indoctrination efforts. This strategic focus exploits the public transparency of the COVID response to dismantle a shared criminal infrastructure operating across multiple domains. The shared networks and overlapping participation across events. The same institutional and personal networks appear repeatedly across the sequence of events. Government officials who imposed COVID mandates later shaped border policies, advanced DEI frameworks, and supported educational gender programs. Public health bureaucrats who directed masking and vaccination campaigns collaborated with media and technology entities that amplified BLM narratives while suppressing dissent on election integrity. Pharmaceutical and corporate interests profiting from COVID policies extend influence into immigration-related industries and ideological initiatives. Educational administrators enforcing child masking and vaccination seamlessly transition to gender ideology curricula. This overlapping membership creates a unified operational web where expertise, funding, and political protection flow between crises. COVID crimes exhibit the least deniability due to their public execution. Officials signed documents, appeared in press conferences, issued mandates, and coordinated censorship in full view. This transparency contrasts with the more compartmentalized elements in border operations, where policy choices enable exploitation networks with partial plausible deniability, or in election processes where procedural irregularities blend with legitimate administration. BLM-related violence received institutional support through public statements and funding decisions that parallel COVID-era selective enforcement. DEI and trans initiatives operate through institutional capture with ideological framing that obscures direct criminal intent. The overt quality of COVID participation provides documented connections that illuminate hidden layers in companion events. The designation of COVID treason, COVID murder, and COVID child abuse as imprescriptible creates a legal mechanism to address the entire network. Removal of individuals through COVID accountability proceedings disrupts their capacity to participate in or protect other criminal activities. A governor who authorized nursing home policies and vaccine mandates may also oversee border enforcement failures or educational policies. A public health official central to data suppression on COVID may influence narratives across multiple domains. By prioritizing the most documented offenses, the framework efficiently targets the core actors sustaining the broader sequence of events. The primacy of COVID crimes in establishing imprescriptible accountability. COVID crimes merit primary focus because their public documentation enables straightforward application of no statute of limitations principles. The framework classifies these acts as COVID treason for constitutional violations through power centralization, COVID murder for policies producing foreseeable deaths and injuries, and COVID child abuse for medical and coercive harms inflicted on minors. These designations align with the intent behind imprescriptible categories, preventing powerful actors from evading justice through delay. The open record of mandates, censorship, and enforcement supplies self-evident evidence that satisfies legal thresholds without reliance on contested testimony. Prosecuting COVID criminals generates cascading effects across connected events. Individuals removed from positions due to COVID accountability can no longer influence border security decisions, election administration, racial equity programs, or gender policies in schools. The networks exposed through COVID documentation reveal funding streams, coordination mechanisms, and personnel pipelines that sustain the full sequence. This approach respects varying degrees of severity and deniability across events while exploiting the transparency of the COVID response as the optimal starting point. Other events retain their independent criminal character but benefit from the initial dismantling of shared infrastructure. The legal tradition supports this strategy. Courts adapt imprescriptible categories to novel circumstances of comparable gravity. The institutional scale, coordination, and continuing harm of the COVID response justify treating these acts as falling within the same perpetual accountability framework as traditional treason, murder, and child abuse. By establishing precedent through the most documented offenses, the system creates a pathway for addressing the full chain of interconnected criminal activity without temporal limitation on the foundational COVID crimes. Strategic accountability, removing COVID criminals to address the broader sequence. Targeting COVID criminals through imprescriptible designations achieves systemic disruption. Elected officials, appointed bureaucrats, corporate executives, media leaders, and institutional actors identified in the COVID response frequently occupy overlapping roles in other events. Their removal through formal proceedings based on the public COVID record weakens the operational capacity of networks sustaining border policies, unrest management, electoral processes, equity initiatives, and indoctrination programs. This sequential approach respects the distinct character of each event while leveraging the strongest evidentiary foundation available. The framework maintains that all listed events constitute crimes in themselves while generating additional layers of conspiracy and spillover. However, the overt nature of COVID participation provides the clearest path to initial accountability. Once key figures face consequences for COVID treason, COVID murder, and COVID child abuse, subsequent investigations into connected events encounter diminished protection and disrupted coordination. The absence of a statute of limitations on the COVID offenses ensures that justice proceeds regardless of elapsed time, setting a model for addressing the full sequence. This interconnected analysis demonstrates that focusing on COVID crimes efficiently maps and dismantles the shared criminal networks operating across recent events. The public documentation, institutional depth, and severity of the COVID response establish it as the central node for perpetual accountability measures. By removing COVID criminals from positions of power, the framework clears the field for comprehensive resolution of the entire chain of criminal activity while operating firmly within established legal and philosophical principles of imprescriptible justice. Conclusion: interconnected events reveal shared networks for broader accountability. The sequence of recent events reveals a tightly interconnected criminal ecosystem linked by shared participants, organizations, and operational networks. While each event possesses distinct characteristics and degrees of overtness, the COVID response stands as the most public, documented, and legally accessible entry point for accountability. Designation of these acts as COVID treason, COVID murder, and COVID child abuse invokes imprescriptible status that carries no statute of limitations, enabling prosecution based on the self-evident public record. This strategic focus on COVID crimes efficiently targets core actors whose removal disrupts participation across the broader sequence, including border policies, domestic unrest, electoral processes, discriminatory initiatives, and ideological programs targeting children. The framework honors the varying layers and severity of each event while exploiting the transparency of the COVID response to establish precedent and operational disruption. Perpetual accountability for COVID crimes thus serves as the foundational mechanism for addressing the full interconnected web of recent criminal activity. Ultimately, concentrating accountability efforts on the overt COVID crimes provides the most effective pathway to dismantle shared networks and restore constitutional order. The imprescriptible designations ensure that justice cannot be delayed, creating a cascading effect that strengthens resolution of all connected events within the established legal tradition. This approach upholds the moral imperative to confront radical evil through precise, evidence-based, and timeless accountability.